Ian Brady, born in 1938 in Glasgow, Scotland, was the son of a tea-room waitress, and his father's identity remains unknown. As a teenager, Ian dropped out of school and appeared in juvenile court 3 times for burglary and threatening with a knife. Before he turned 18, Ian was sentenced to 2 years in a reform school after being caught stealing. After being released in 1957, he moved to Manchester, switching between various jobs. In 1959, Ian Brady applied for a position as a clerk at a chemical distribution company. Here, he met typist Myra Hindley, born in 1942. Myra lived in the slums of suburban Manchester, with an alcoholic father who often abused his wife and children. She quickly fell in love with Ian Brady, despite knowing about his criminal record. In December 1961, the two began dating. In a letter to a friend, Myra expressed concerns about Ian's personality and recounted an instance where he drugged her and brainwashed her with his views on religion and politics. Myra began to change her appearance, bleaching her hair blonde, wearing dark red lipstick and dressing provocatively, contrasting with her previously reserved and shy demeanor. The couple became isolated from colleagues, often borrowing books on philosophy, crime, and methods of torture from the library. They bought guns, rented vehicles, and planned a bank robbery, which ultimately failed. After moving in together, on July 12, 1963, Ian told Myra he wanted to carry out the perfect crime. After work, he instructed her to borrow a van and drive along the road while he followed on a motorcycle. When he identified a victim, he would flash the headlights. Around 7:30 p.m. on Froxmoor Road, Ian signalled Myra to stop next to Pauline Reed, a 16-year-old schoolmate of Myra's sister. Knowing that Pauline was walking to her dance class, Myra offered her a lift. Once Pauline got into the van, Myra asked her to help find an expensive glove she had lost on Saddleworth Moor. They drove there, where they assaulted and killed Pauline, then buried her body on the moor. The police found no witnesses who had seen Pauline before her disappearance. On the night of November 23, 1963, at a market in Ashton-under-Lyne, the couple offered John Kilbride, a 12-year-old boy, a ride home and promised him a bottle of wine. When John got into Myra's rented vehicle, they said they needed to take a detour to pick up the wine, taking him to the moor. 8 days after John failed to return home, 2,000 volunteers searched all over wastelands and abandoned buildings but found no trace of the boy. In 1964, Ian and Myra moved to 16 Wardlebrook Avenue in Cheshire. They formed a close relationship with Myra's sister Maureen and her husband David Smith. Ian often discussed robberies and murders of innocent people with David, a teenager with a criminal record. On the night of June 16, 1964, Myra asked 12-year-old Keith Bennett, who was on his way to his grandmother's house, to help her load some boxes into her van. Ian was in the back. Using the same pretense, Myra drove Keith to Saddleworth Moor, where they committed the crime. On December 26, 1964, the couple went to a fair in Ancoats and saw 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey standing alone. They deliberately dropped items, then asked the girl to help carry them to the car. They took Leslie back to their home on Wardlebrook Avenue. There, she was forced to pose for photos unclothed before being assaulted and strangled. The next morning, they transported her body to Saddleworth Moor to bury her. On October 6, 1965, Myra drove Ian to Manchester Central Railway Station, waiting for him to choose a victim. Ian later lured Edward Evans, a 17-year-old engineering apprentice, to join them for a drink. They drove home, shared wine, and summoned David. David was led into the kitchen while Ian fetched more wine. After 1 to 2 minutes, David heard continuous screams and Myra calling for help. When he rushed into the living room, David saw Edward sprawled across the couch with Ian standing over him, holding an axe and striking his head, then strangling him with a long electrical cord. The next morning, David assisted in bringing a cart to move the body into the vehicle and dispose of it on the moor. After returning home, David was so disturbed he vomited and then recounted the ordeal to his wife. At dawn, David reported it to the police. Ian was arrested on suspicion of murder. He claimed he fought with Edward and that things got out of control, but blamed David as the killer. On October 11th, Myra was also arrested, charged as an accomplice in Edward's murder. Police searched the house on Wardlebrook Avenue and found an old exercise book with the name John Kilbride, leading them to suspect the couple's involvement in other disappearances. David disclosed that Ian had hidden evidence related to the crimes in a suitcase stored at the railway station. Upon inspection, police discovered suitcases at Manchester Central Station on October 15th, containing clothing, notes, photos, and negatives. One suitcase contained 9 obscene photographs and a 16-minute recording of a girl identifying herself as Leslie Ann Weston, who was heard screaming, crying, and begging to return home to her mother. Leslie's mother later confirmed the voice and photographs as her daughter. Based on neighbour testimonies, police searched Saddleworth Moor, Ian and Myra's favoured location. On October 16th, they found an arm bone protruding from the peat, identified as Leslie's. Her mother recognised her buried clothing. David revealed that Ian had bragged about photographing evidence after committing crimes. Police appealed to the local community to help identify locations matching the photographs from the suitcase. On October 21st, they found John's body. Investigators suspected the couple of murdering other missing children and teenagers in and around Manchester in recent years. However, further searches failed to locate additional remains. On December 2nd, Ian was charged with the murders of John, Leslie, and Edward. Myra was charged with the murders of Leslie and Edward, and as an accomplice in John's death. The 14-day trial began on April 19th, 1966, drawing substantial media attention domestically and internationally. The dock was fitted with bulletproof glass to prevent victims' families from harming the defendants. However, in court, both defendants pleaded not guilty. On May 6, 1966, the jury found Ian guilty of murder in all 3 cases, while Myra was found guilty of the murders of Leslie and Edward. Since the death penalty for murder had been abolished during their detention, the judge sentenced them to life imprisonment. The judge described the defendants as 2 monsters of utmost depravity, calling Ian a pervert beyond imagination, with no prospect of reform. After his conviction, Ian requested solitary confinement, stating he never wanted to be released. He was diagnosed as a psychopath in November 1985 and transferred to a high-security hospital. Myra filed an appeal shortly after the trial, but it was rejected. She corresponded with Ian until their relationship ended in 1971. Myra fell in love with a prison guard and plotted an escape with her lover's help, but the plan failed. In 1985, Greater Manchester Police reopened the investigation, continuing the search of Saddleworth Moor, once again using photographs taken by the couple to help identify burial locations. In November 1986, Keith's mother wrote a letter to Myra pleading to know what had happened to her son. The letter seemed to touch the female killer. A few days after receiving it, while still denying any involvement in the murder, she agreed to help by reviewing photos and maps to identify places she had visited with Ian. The Home Secretary, Douglas Hurd, allowed police to take Myra to the moors to help locate the burial sites, at her request. The search took place on December 16, 1986, with 200 armed officers present, but it yielded no results. On February 10, 1987, Myra officially confessed her involvement in all 5 murders. Her taped statement lasted over 17 hours, though she consistently maintained that she was never present when the crimes occurred. Myra was brought to the moors a second time in March 1987, offering some additional hints to police. On July 1st, after more than 100 days of searching, authorities finally discovered Pauline's body buried 0.9 meters deep, about 90 meters from where Leslie had been found. Upon learning of this discovery, Ian also agreed to confess his crimes to the police. He was taken to the moors to locate the body, but was unsuccessful. Although both Ian and Myra confessed to killing Pauline and Keith, The director of public prosecutions decided not to hold another trial, since both were already serving life sentences, rendering further punishment impossible. In the 1990s, Myra claimed that she participated in the crimes due to Ian drugging her, blackmailing her with photographs, and threatening to kill her younger sister, Maureen. Myra applied for parole multiple times but was consistently denied. On November 15th, 2002, she died of pneumonia at the age of 60. In a letter written in 2005, Ian stated that the murders were merely rehearsals for over a year, ending in December 1964. Ian claimed the couple then shifted their attention to armed robbery, preparing guns and vehicles. Ian later died of lung disease on May 15, 2017, at the age of 79. Over the years, the police continued searching for Keith's body on the moors, using modern technology, including American spy satellites, to detect soil disturbances. The latest search in September 2022 remained fruitless. The crimes committed by Ian and Myra inspired Edward Gorey's book, The Loathsome Couple, published in 1977. The case was also referenced in two 2006 television dramas, See No Evil, The Moors Murders, and Longford. What do you think about today's case? Please leave your comments below so we can discuss it together. Don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe to the channel to motivate our team to bring more dramatic cases. And that concludes today's case. Thank you, dear viewers, for watching. Goodbye, and see you next time.